Scott and I had a discussion the other day about vulnerability. And I think we've had very different perceptions of what that meant. And so we thought we'd just have a little discussion here right now so we can share this. It's not about agreeing, it's not about, arriving at the same conclusion. It's about having the conversation so that people can make up your own mind. You can just think about it and just go, this resonates with me, this doesn't. But the idea is vulnerability is an important emotion. And we just want to invite you to look at what role it plays in your life. Because there's a lot of stuff around vulnerability. In the dictionary, it says, and I quote, vulnerability means that we're being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. So when we admit to feeling vulnerable, it's pretty risky business. But we also teach people not to do that. And at the same time, we've got the whole social media stuff where people just share their struggles. And we don't really, and I don't know about you, but sometimes it doesn't feel so authentic. It just feels like a chase for likes. So there's so many different aspects to vulnerability. And I just wanted to, Scott and I thought we'd just have a chat about it.
A chat, a robust discussion might come about from this.
Yeah.
Because for me, the word vulnerable is not something I'll ever ask a man to be.
What do you ask if you want
Ask
to?
for a courageous conversation. I'm
Okay.
not going to ask any man to walk into a situation and be attacked or harmed either emotionally or physically.
Sure. But what if we reframe the meaning of vulnerability? What if we say being vulnerable actually means being strong? Because my sense is it's like being selfish. Being selfish means you take care of yourself. It's got such a bad rep, like if you don't take care of yourself, the only way we can get kudos is when we're being selfless, when we lose the self, right? So I think vulnerability is just as bad, has the same bad rep as being selfish. That's my interpretation.
I love this, right? Because selfish, being selfish. That means it's only about you. You're being self-full. That's a whole nother word, a whole nother opportunity, right? If
No,
you,
but who uses the word self-full? You and I have reframed this, and this is what I'm saying. Let's reframe vulnerable.
yeah, but well, that's why I want to talk about selfish, right? You and I have had this conversation about being self-full,
Yeah.
right? Self-full, so that you've got enough to give to others, that you are giving yourself permission and the opportunity to be self-full,
Mhm.
so you've got your battery charged to give to others.
Yes. But we're
Right?
not talking about being self-full. I
No,
just use that as an example to bring us
but
back to
that's sort
reframing
of
vulnerability.
100%, right? Because we sat in the idea of selfish, and then we challenged it, and then we came away with
Mm.
self-full.
Yes.
So today we're going to challenge vulnerable,
Mhm.
right? And we're going to create a different dialogue. We're going to open up conversation, and we're going to see where we end up.
Exactly.
So now I'm a little bit passionate about this, just a little mildly,
Just a little, yeah.
just mildly passionate about it, right? And I so I'm going to give you circumstances that are my reason for it. I think vulnerable is a great emotion,
Hmm.
right? I think it's something we feel situationally. I'm not going to ask us to be vulnerable. I'm going to ask us to have the courage to step into situations that we need to grow through. And I'm going to give you that example now. I host dinners for men where we create courageous conversations and we explore everything that life puts in front of us. There's
Yes.
no conversation off the table. Whatever conversation comes in on that night, I will have a run sheet for the night. But if something comes up, that is the most important thing we need to deal with because it's there on the table. So we don't avoid it. We go through it.
Yes.
Last week, I had a message from a community member that said that her husband's mate actually tried to take his life. He's still here. Went to the psych ward. 3 days later, he's out of the psych ward with a heap of meds,
Mm.
but nowhere to go.
Mm.
help.
Mm.
Get onto the Smiles for Life crew. Guys, I need to put a dinner together. Got to have a conversation. We're going to support each other right now. 17 men turned up to have dinner to hold space.
Mm.
There was 4 people from the community that had never been. Put a quick shout out on Facebook. Hey, pop up dinner. Come along. We'll have a conversation. We get into the room. We sit down. One of the big things I love to do is find a reason to smile. Life is better with a smile, right? So I go through my process. What made you smile today? And I watch the room, and I watch who has difficulty just answering that question.
Mm.
How do you feel today? And I'm watching the room. Who's having difficulty with that one? And then my third question, how do you feel as a man?
Mm.
Not one man could answer it. Not one man could even articulate it.
Yeah.
That's where we're at as men. At this point, I go around and I just ask for one word from everybody. Give me one word. Give me one emotion that you're feeling. I get round to the gentleman that needed to have a conversation. And I asked him, I said, are you okay to share right now? Are you okay to share what's going on in a minute? Because actually, I'm really uncomfortable.
Mm.
I said, I really want to embrace that for a minute, because one of the big things you can do in this room is say pass.
Mm.
Because sometimes we feel pressure to talk and feel pressure to do something.
Yeah.
But if you pass, we actually celebrate you, because I would actually like to pass. I said, thank you so much. That takes so much courage when you're under pressure to put a gap between incident and
Mm.
response. Okay.
It's a
So,
boundary, a time boundary.
right. But we give them an opportunity to sit in that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we go through the conversation, celebrating him, go around the table, and then we started sitting there with the emotions, and with the help of you, Angela, and that's why I love you with all my heart. We've got your emotions, because emotions aren't words, but we'll get to that bit. And so I got everybody to pick an emotion, and then we put it on the whiteboard, and we had it positive, neutral, or negative.
Mm-hmm.
What is the emotion? And then we had debate around what it was. And it was fantastic, because by the time we finished that conversation, we realized that they can be any.
Mm.
It depends on where we're at, and it depends on what application they have. So what we need to do is get curious about the emotion and not just give it a name.
Mm.
So then we started exploring emotions. And we poured up from your book, Angela. Thank you so much for this. I put them up on the screen. We had a look. We had curious. We had strong. Beautiful words. And we broke down what they actually mean. But then we got to vulnerable. And I shared my absolute disdain for asking, just asking our men to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Then I go back to the gentleman that walked into the room, and I asked him to share. I said, how are you feeling? He goes, good. I said, well, let's talk about vulnerable in this situation. When you walked into the room and sat down and we had the first parts of the conversation, and I came to you, you were completely vulnerable.
Mm.
You were under attack emotionally because of my question.
Mm.
You said, no, I can't do this. And we celebrated you for that. But choosing to say, no, I'm not going to be vulnerable. Because the reality was, he was walking out the door.
Mm.
If I had pushed any further,
Mm.
he was out the door, and I would never, ever have seen him again.
Of course. Yeah.
But then we had a courageous conversation. We explored and got curious about emotions. We got curious about vulnerable. We understood what vulnerable meant.
Mm.
We understood the application of it. We understood, we say, we're not having that.
Mm.
We had a courageous conversation to the point where this beautiful man who had never spoken a word in his life about himself felt safe enough to be.
Mm.
In time, he's going to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But demanding that, it's not okay.
Okay. So I hear you, and at this point, we are not very much in disagreement.
Mm.
I would never ask anybody to open up and be vulnerable. I think that's something that has to come from the inside. To tell somebody they should be vulnerable, that is an act of that aggression and that harm. That's what opens up that space. I am asking you to be open here to being harmed because I may not agree with what you're sharing. But if somebody says to me, I'm feeling really vulnerable right now, I'll go, okay, you decide what you want to do with this. You can say no, or you can say, I want to lean into that and I want to really talk about this. That's a choice then. But it's not oh, we need to be vulnerable here and, like share at all cost, no matter what, because we're in this space and we need to do this right now. No, definitely not. Absolutely no go whatsoever. So for me, vulnerability is the recognition of I'm feeling really uncomfortable here. My boundaries are impaired. I may feel I have the perception of being pushed. I may have the perception of being at risk of being harmed. But it's the articulation of that feeling. It's that sense of I feel that in my body. Where do I feel vulnerable? It could be your throat might close up, or you have like the sense of barbed wire in your stomach, or or you feel that you really want to just move back and just have that sense of just put some distance between you and what's happening. So there are all sorts of physical sensations that people have when they're feeling vulnerable. The other thing that can happen is you go into brain fog, where you go, I've got no idea what I'm going to say yet. Now what I'm going to say, I may either completely let go of my filters and say something that I might regret later, or I may just want to shut down and not say anything altogether. It's that recognition. It's the ability to say, this is not working for me right now. I'm feeling vulnerable, and then make a choice. And that's when you said, I don't believe in positive or negative emotions. For me,
Yep.
they're pleasant or they're unpleasant. So I can then, sometimes vulnerability can be very pleasant. When I'm in an environment where I trust someone, you and I have had very vulnerable conversations where it felt absolutely wonderful to be vulnerable. And I remember we had one a couple of weeks ago where I completely lost the plot, and I was just sobbing because something had happened and I couldn't cope. And as soon as I had let go of that and you just listened and you were there for me, I felt, and I texted you, I feel 10,000 times better, right?
Yeah.
But if it doesn't feel good, then it's okay to say, no, I don't want to do this right now. So I think we're not really that far away.
So is it vulnerable, right? Because when we speak, and we'll talk in terms of you and I,
Mm.
you're not under attack,
Hmm.
right? So you're not actually being vulnerable. You're just being open-hearted,
Yes, it's
right?
still vulnerable because I still check in with myself. No, and not anymore because I know I'm safe with you. But
Yeah.
initially, and that's the trust building. When you build a relationship with somebody, you don't want, I know people who open up immediately and share their whole life with you, right?
Uh-huh.
That's not being vulnerable either.
Agreed.
But if you open up gradually and you know that your trust is validated, then vulnerability doesn't become that I need to check whether I can or cannot anymore. It disappears. Then we're open-hearted.
Vulnerable's walking into a door that you don't know what's on the other side,
Yeah, exactly. So
right?
like you did with that gentleman in your meeting, you build the trust and then he open up.
So we honor the courage.
Yeah.
Yeah, we honor the courage to go through the door. We honor the courage to be vulnerable, but to feel vulnerable,
Mm,
right? We feel vulnerable, but we ask you to stay.
yeah.
I don't want you to be vulnerable. I don't want you to find yourself in situations where you're open to attack physically or mentally. I don't want you to find that. I want you to say, I feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your next step is just I've got my hands up. That's it. Your next step is just to stop.
Yeah.
This is what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And then we find the open opportunity for conversation. Then we find the courage to share what's going on for us.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to find the safe place first.
Yes.
So what I have found, and especially through social media, we're being told to be vulnerable.
Mm.
And I think that's a mistake. I think that's a real problem that we're demanding that from people. I think we need to get curious about the opportunity of what vulnerable is, as we are now, and just say, this is what it is. But then we're going to find the next conversation. It's a bit like Are You Okay Day, right?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
See if I'm going to tell you. See if you want to hear me.
Yeah.
But Are You Okay Day has been a great start. It's been a great starting point, right? And like this, the whole opportunity is the fact that, okay, this is being pushed. Vulnerable, be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a great start, but we need to evolve.
Yes.
We need to evolve beyond where that is. And that's in everything. Like one of the things that I have adored about our relationship, Angela, is the courageous conversations that we have, that we're prepared to open our hearts up to get a better understanding and ask questions. Ask questions. Curiosity is like the question I asked, which was great the other night. Just ask the guys. I even asked last night. I said, just out of curiosity, hands up, who's actually been taught what emotions are
Mm.
and how to feel them.
Crickets.
No hands, no voices. But this is the beauty of it, right?
Mm.
I love the fact that we're evolved enough as humans to want to have these conversations. I love the fact that we're in a situation of abundance where we're not just surviving, we can take the time to explore how we feel.
Mm.
And then we can take that to understand and create strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's understanding our emotions that actually gives us the strength.
You're talking. Yes.
Same hymn book, right? La, la.
Yes.
Sorry. Vulnerable,
Yeah.
strong,
Okay.
curious.
So just to round this up, so we can agree
Mm.
on the fact that it's important to feel vulnerability, but that you don't necessarily have to admit it. You don't have to go around and say, unless you have trust, to say I'm vulnerable right now and I don't want to talk about it or whatever it is. That's a choice. But if you're in a conversation with somebody you don't know and you start feeling vulnerable, you don't have to say I'm feeling vulnerable. You can just pass.
Thank
Right?
you.
The importance is to feel it, to recognize that you're feeling vulnerable and not judge it from a place of weakness or this is bad or anything. All of these things that we've been told, we have to be strong, we have to be stoic, we have to be self-reliant, but instead going, you know what? It's not working for me. I'm feeling vulnerable. And that is, and I'm getting goosebumps. That is what it is. It's just the recognition for ourselves that that's how we feel. Putting a
Yeah.
name on it instead of saying, I'm fine, fucked up, irrational, neurotic,
I'm
emotionally unavailable.
fine. I've got all this shit coming at me, but I'm fine.
Fine. Yes. Yeah.
And it's this is the magic of this conversation to me, right? I I love what we're doing as humans. I love the fact that we've got all these opportunities to grow. We've got AI that's helping us like do things that we're going to be able to have more conversations like this. We're going to be able to feel more, be more, do more. But it's only going to work if we take the opportunity to explore it.
Yes.
And that, if I could gift anyone anything, be curious, explore,
Yes.
you know, because that's where the growth is. That's where we get a better understanding. That's where we find deeper connection.
Yes. And that's where vulnerability comes in. Curiosity. Be curious about how you feel. Take the label good, bad off. Just notice it's not doesn't feel so great. It feels unpleasant or it feels pleasant. And then take it from there. Yay. Okay.
Yeah. All right. On that note, Angela, from my
Scott?
heart, thank you for having a courageous conversation with me.
Oh, this felt safe, normal.
Well, so I'm going to grab that, right? Because it is safe and normal for us. We
Yes.
can do these things. So what is it we need? Can we please stop asking somebody to be vulnerable? Let's not determine how somebody else feels.
Don't tell people how they should feel, please. Ah, but that's, you know what? Let's have another conversation about that.
Done.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. And we'll get back to you with more. See you soon.